Hey everybody, welcome back. All right, so very quick bit of housekeeping. Just got this blue MIDI segment here, so I want that to be yellow. All I'm going to do is right click on it and select yellow to keep it in line with everything else. Now, one of the most important things you can learn how to do as an artist or producer is be able to make a chord progression. It not only sounds good, but it gives you a musical structure that can help inspire many other elements of your track, like the bass line, a melody, arpeggiators, even vocals, and all sorts of other stuff. So if you ever get stuck when making music, just come up with a chord progression, which is really easy to do. I'm going to show you how to do that, and then use that as inspiration to build your track. So Ableton doesn't come with any sort of chord helper tools, like for example, Captain Chords or Scalar 2. But even if you did use them, it's really important that you understand the basics of how a chord progression is created, so you can then modify an existing chord progression or just come up with something of your own. So I'm going to teach you the most basic steps required to make a simple chord progression. Literally anyone can do this, and in Ableton it's even easier. So first we need an instrument to be able to play. Now Ableton comes with a few different instruments, which you can get to in the Media tab by clicking Instruments, and then we'll go to Instrument Rack, we'll go to Piano and Strings, and if I just scroll down a bit, we'll see we've got a grand piano. Now you can actually just audition these. By the way, if you want the sample to stop repeating, you actually have to hit the spacebar on your keyboard. Pressing the stop button here doesn't actually work for stopping the playback, just remember that. So instruments can only be loaded onto MIDI tracks. They don't work on audio tracks. So let's actually create another MIDI track. Just right click, insert MIDI track. While we're here, I'm just going to color this a sort of pinky red color. That'll be the color of most of the instruments in the track. And just the same as with loading an audio sample, in order to load an instrument, we first want to select the MIDI track, then come over, and whatever instrument it is, in this case we're going to use the grand piano, just going to double click it, and that will load it onto the MIDI track. Once again, we need to create a blank MIDI segment, so we're just going to make a selection on the grand piano track. Hit Ctrl-Shift-M to create a blank MIDI segment, and we'll see our familiar piano roll down here, and on it we have our grand piano sound. So now it's time to get into some super basic music theory. I'm going to give you steps that you can follow every single time. And for those of you who already sort of understand a bit about music theory, stick around as this can still be useful, but obviously I'm going to keep things super basic for those completely new to this. So step one of writing a chord progression is to pick a scale, and the first rule is to only use the notes from that scale. Now a scale is a set of notes that have a particular harmonic relationship to each other. Now, the most common scales you've probably heard of are major or minor scales, and you can use pretty much whatever letter that you want. In this case, for this track, we're going to use the E major scale. So step two, after you've picked your scale in Ableton, we can use the scale helper. So over here, you'll see this window, and we've got scale. And if we click here, we can pick which letter we want. So we want E, as this is going to be E major, and it's automatically selected major. That's the first one, but you can choose a different scale type here. I kind of advise that beginners probably just stick to major and minor for now, but whatever, you can experiment, that's fine. And then we just have to click the scale button to activate the helper. Now, as you can see, suddenly all these colored lines have popped up. So what this represents, all the colored lines are the notes that are in the E major scale. Any ones that aren't colored are notes that fall outside of the scale, so we won't be using those notes. Now we can make this even easier by coming up in the piano roll and clicking the scale button. Okay, so what that's done is actually removed any of the notes that aren't in the E major scale. Okay, so we're only left with notes that we can use. All right, so step three is to make a basic triad chord. It's the easiest thing ever. Just literally pick the root note of the chord, which is always the lowest note. So we're going to use E for the first chord as we're in the E major scale. So let's find that. So E3, E is going to be our root note. Let's double click to add a note. Then to make a chord, we just miss a note in the scale and add another note. Then we miss a note in the scale and add another note. And then we've got a chord. We can select all three of these and just make them a little bit longer. So that's our first chord. And then we can just repeat step three on any note in the scale to make more chords. Now, first off though, we need to make this MIDI segment a little bit longer, as it's only 1 bar long at the moment. So if we come over to the length section and we just click where it says 1 and drag up, we want to have this as 4 bars long. So just change that so it says 4, and then we can get adding different chords. So let's have our second chord on bar 2 here, starting on C sharp. So I'm going to click and add in a note. I'm going to miss a note in the scale, add another note, miss a note in the scale, add another note. Simple as that. So let's just play what we have. Oh, and I forgot we got to actually extend our loop region a bit. So I'm just going to bring that down for a second. And let's just set our loop region so it's over 4 bars. So from bars 5 to 9. And we'll select our drum parts, various different ways to expand these across the whole 4 bars. We can literally just grab the bracket and just loop them over and over. That's absolutely fine. We'll also do the same with the piano. Now we've got 4 bars. Okay, so all good. Let's get back to working on the actual melody. So on the 3rd bar of this progression, let's have a chord starting with G sharp. So I'm going to come over, draw in a note on G sharp. This is our root note. Just going to zoom in a little bit so we can see all the names. Then we miss a note in the scale, add another note, miss a note in the scale, add another note. It's that simple. Okay, so it's sounding all right so far. Now we need the last chord in our progression. And it's important that the last chord resolves on a musical level back to the first chord. So for this, we really need to know the chord numbers. So let's just zoom out a little bit and I'll explain. It's really simple. The chord starting with the note of the scale, E in this case, is always the 1 chord. Doesn't matter which octave you're in, I could be in E4. If the root note is on an E, it's always a 1 chord. And then it just goes up from there. So E is a 1 chord. A chord starting with the root note of F sharp will be a 2 chord. A chord starting with a G sharp, like this one here. This is a 3 chord, then a 4 chord, a 5 chord, 6 chord, 7 chord. And then it just repeats around again. So 1 chord, 2 chord, 3 chord, etc. Now, the reason that the numbering is important is that 95% of the time, a chord progression will end on a 4 chord, which would be an A in this case, or a 5 chord, a B. So in this track, we are starting with a 1 chord and we're going to end on a 5 chord. So this last chord here is going to be a 5 chord. So let's just figure out what that is. So we just count up. So E is a 1 chord, 2, 3, 4, 5. So B will be the root note of our 5 chord. Let's just draw that in. Then we miss a note in the scale, add another note, miss a note in the scale, add another note. And then we have a 5 chord. Let's just play that. Okay, so we've got a very basic 4-bar chord progression, but I want to make this a little bit longer. So let's just change the length of this again, and we're going to go from 4 bars up to 8 bars. Now, just to give us a bit more room, I'm just going to hide this window here called the info view. So we can come up to view and just click info. I'll get rid of that just to give us a bit more space. And also I'm just going to make in our projects window everything a bit longer. So let's just zoom out a little bit, set the loop region over 8 bars. Again, we're just going to select our drums and move them over so they're looped for the whole 8 bars. And we're going to expand our piano as well. Okay, great. Now let's get on and do the sort of second half of this progression, which is basically going to be a repeat, or at least in many ways it'll be a repeat of the first half. So we'll start back on the 1 chord here. So I'm just going to actually copy that across. So select the first chords, hold Control or Command on a Mac and copy that over. So just so you don't get lost, I'm just going to play this. And then we just got to decide what notes or what chords we want in the second half. So after this repeat of the 1 chord, we're going to have a 5 chord again. So I'm just going to copy that over to bar 6. Then we're going to have a 3 chord again. So again, we can just copy it. And that's going to go just 1 beat before bar 7. That's going to lead into the 6 chord. So again, we can just copy that from there. That's going to go on bar 7. So let me just quickly play that so far. And then the last chord is going to be another 5 chord, but we're going to have this an octave lower. So I'm going to copy that. And that's just going to start on the root notes of B, but an octave lower than the other 5 chord. All right, let me just zoom out so you can see the whole thing, and I'll just play it. Okay, all sounding good, but just note this came about through experimentation with the chords. It didn't just suddenly pop into existence, kind of like you see me doing it now. It all just seems to happen very quickly. But when I came up with the original chord progression, it took a bit of time to experiment, try different chords in different places, find out what worked and what didn't, and eventually, after a bit of time, you end up with a chord progression like this. So don't worry if it's not just suddenly happening. It does take time to mess around and try different things out. But you know there are only 7 possible triad chords that you can use, and you're only going to end a chord progression on a 4 or a 5 chord, and you're going to start it with the 1 chord. So all you got to do is really pick the 2 chords in between, or 3 chords if you're going to mix it up a little bit like this bit here. Now also, if you are really struggling with any of this, or you just want to take your melody skills much further, you should definitely check out our Music Theory for EDM Producers tutorial, as it takes you from the absolute basics all the way through to being able to create your own killer chord progressions and melodies. There is way more to writing really emotive melodies that keep the listener engaged with your music, whether that is future bass or singer-songwriter. So definitely check that out if you want to unlock your music producer skills. Now, the last thing I want to do is just make this a little more interesting than just having the chords fall on the beat. So let's move every second chord to an offbeat. So very simple. Let's go into bar 2. I'm just going to select that chord and move it to the offbeat before where it was. And the same with the chord on bar 4. Let's just scroll along. And then the chord on bar 6. And then the very last chord. All right, so let's just play what we got. Just funks it up a bit. All right, that's it for this lesson, but remember, even though this sounds super simple, the chord progression you have made here is going to serve as the foundation for all the other musical parts of this track. The pad, the bass line, the arpeggiator, the vocals, the guitar will all come from what you did here. This really is the first sort of major hurdle in making your own tracks. It's that important. So well done. Now it's just a case of fleshing out the track, arranging it, record the vocals and guitar, and then mix it all together. Don't forget to save your work. Thank you very much for watching, guys and girls. See you in the next one.